Previously, we learned how to compose the exposition of a simple fugue by examining Johann Pachelbel's fugal introductions to various Lutheran chorales. Examining his fugue on Ein feste Burg ist unser Gott, a mighty fortress is our God, let's now see how he continues a four-voice fugue beyond the initial exposition. This fugue is a tonal fugue. That is, one in which there is a contraction or expansion of one or more intervals in the answer to the subject such that the answer remains in the tonic key. In this case, the descending perfect fourth from D to A is answered by a descending perfect fifth from A to D. The entry scheme is subject in tenor, answer in alto, subject in soprano, codetta, that is, a bridge passage, answer in bass. A sense of completion is felt once the bass enters in bar 13, and indeed, at this point, we have completed the exposition. Just before the bass concludes its statement of the answer, the texture moves to three voices and continues thus through the codetta to the counter-exposition, opened by the soprano, this time with the answer rather than the subject at bar 19, venturing into the soprano's highest tessitura. At this point, it is no longer necessary that entries be in adjacent voices. Note how moving from bar 18 to bar 19, the alto takes over from the tenor by elision. Having taken a brief rest from bar 19 to bar 22, the tenor is set to draw the listener's attention when it enters with the subject in bar 23. Sequences, such as the descending one that starts on the second half of bar 25, are common features of a codetta. In bar 27, Pachelbel avoids a cadence in the relative minor as he moves to the next statement of the answer, which is in the bass, and is accompanied in stretto, that is, accompanied canonically, by the alto with the subject. As at its previous entry, the bass has the answer, but now it lies in its lowest tessitura. Here Pachelbel permits a truncated statement of the answer. After a codetta, the tenor enters with the answer in stretto with the soprano, which holds forth with the subject. The last statement of the subject is in the bass at bar 41, where all four voices join forces once again to create a feeling of integration. And, as is very typical of fugue endings, there is an alternation of tonic and subdominant harmony, a kind of harmonic equivalent to putting the brakes on, or backpedaling, to bring the fugue gently to its conclusion over an inverted pedal tone. In this fugue, we count a total of 11 statements of the subject and answer. Once the exposition is complete, there is no minimum number of subject or answer statements. In a short fugue, we typically find 8 to 12 subjects and answers. Where a voice had the subject, the composer often, but not always, assigns it the answer, or vice versa, at its next appearance. Voices do not have to enter in any particular sequence, and some voices may reappear more frequently than others. Here, for example, the alto carries the tune only twice, while the other voices take 3 turns with it. The final entry may be either the subject or the answer. In a moment, we'll listen to the fugue played at a tempo that will enable you to take in its construction. But first, please take a screenshot of its 2 pages and print it for your reference later on in our discussion. Notice how when a voice enters, Pachelbel leaves enough space, a perfect fourth or more, above or beneath it to make the entry conspicuous. An exception occurs in bar 29, where the alto enters in stretto with the bass. Usually, however, when an inner voice enters, an adjacent voice above or beneath is tacit, again allowing the entry better to draw attention to itself. In only 10 of 47 bars are all four voices active at once. At 2 points, bars 21 and 22, and bars 33 and 34, the texture is reduced to two voices. Harmonic suspensions are ubiquitous, and at 5 entries out of 11, a suspension is present. Suspensions help maintain momentum when rhythmic propulsion falls off, as it inevitably does in bars with note values no greater than a quarter note. Because cadences are frequent in fugues, a wide variety is necessary in order to avoid predictability. Among the most frequent types encountered are imperfect authentic, authentic in various inversions of the dominant and dominant seventh, authentic with suspensions, deceptive, and plagal. The latter appear most frequently at the end of the fugue or within the coda. Consecutive cadences of the same type are avoided. Because of their tendency for stasis, midstream perfect authentic cadences must be treated with care. To keep up the flow, Pachelbel uses running eighths in the alto at the perfect authentic cadence in bar 36. He probably chose to avoid an imperfect authentic cadence, since it would have produced a replication of the cadence in bar 29. Refer now to the screenshots you printed and identify for yourself how many of the different cadence formulas Pachelbel used. In the process of composing a fugue, a variety of trajectories and options are available, and not all can be exploited in the course of a short fugue. Stretto is an entirely optional feature of a fugue, but, as we've noted, Pachelbel has used it twice in this fugue. Let's now examine some other options he could have exercised had he wished. Like stretto, a coda is an optional feature of a short fugue. But let's try expanding Pachelbel's coda. We've added 4.5 bars on a dominant pedal tone, cadenced, then closed with 4 bars on a tonic pedal. The pedal tone causes a loss of momentum. The sequential treatment of a motif drawn from the subject or answer, in this case the descending fifth of the answer, also produces a relenting effect. A sudden abatement would be undesirable, so we've added running eighths in the alto to counteract the slowing somewhat. At the tonic pedal, we downshift further to quarter note movement before coming to rest on the tonic. By contrast, a composer may choose a dash to the finish line, as it were, by adding a flourish over the pedal tone, and this flourish may contain elements of the tune, as we hear in this example. Following the exposition, a composer is free to use alternative answers. Let's examine a few. At bar 19, we'll substitute a real answer in the subdominant for Pachelbel's tonal answer. Here is how it sounds. At the same spot, let's now try a real answer in the dominant. We've noted how Pachelbel evaded a cadence on the tonic of the relative minor at bar 28, even though he could have followed through with an answer in B minor. Our relative minor interpolation results in the next entry, the bass with the answer, on the first half of the bar, rather than where Pachelbel places it on the second. But in the coda, we have compensated for this displacement in order that the tonic chord of the final cadence falls on the downbeat. This analysis of Ein Festebourg gives you an approach to studying any of the short fugues that Pachelbel and other composers of his generation composed. In addition to the many based on chorale tunes, do also investigate the 95 fugues on the 8 tones of the Magnificat to appreciate the full scope of technical and musical possibilities contained in these concise gems of polyphony.